All right, everybody, welcome to Horn Takes Live. I am Sean Redfern, and I've got the guys from SEC Unfiltered joining me tonight. -1. We couldn't get Dave tonight, but that's all right. We'll get him at another shot. I've got Mr. Cole Thompson from SEC Sports Unfiltered, or SEC Unfiltered, and then I've got Mr. Chris Phillips from SEC Unfiltered. Good to have you guys on tonight. Cole, especially nice to have you. I know we've been talking about trying to get together and do something. Now's the time. It's a great day to do it. It's National Signing Day. Happy National Signing Day, guys.
Happy National Signing Day. Horns, I'm just going to be real. I love the back and forth Twitter banter, but you know what? I always say when you get to look somebody in the face and tell it to them eye to eye, I'm always about it. And you know what? We made it happen, baby.
Or eye to sunglasses, whatever.
Whatever, eye to sunglasses.
It works shades. It works for Dion, so
I say, eye to iridescent. It's all good. You know, it all works together.
Yeah. You know, I'm surprised I don't get more shit for my sunglasses. It's probably because not enough people see it, but
I like them. I like them.
I have got a little shit on TikTok. People, when you say something that pisses everybody off, they're like, "Well, why are you wearing sunglasses?" You know, they always go to something that doesn't matter, and it's my sunglasses. And I just tell them it works for Dion. I mean, Dion did it back in the day, and I'm just carrying that tradition on.
Brother, I will tell you right now, there is at least one in every 4 videos that somebody in their 60s says, how can I respect a person that wears the backwards hat? And I'm like, oh, dude, everyone in the media now knows me as backward hat guy. It's like, all right, cool. Yeah. So just build that brand. Be sunglasses guy. Block out those haters with the, I don't even know, what are those? Are those the tinted blue iridescents? I'm not even sure.
They are. These are Costas, man. So I'm ready to go fishing.
There you go. Exactly. See, I used to work at Oakley before I did all these things and I got into media. Nice. So I knew what the iridescents were at that time.
Well, I wanted to tell you, man, I appreciate you having us on. Truly, it's a pleasure. I'm glad we were able to make this work. And especially after a few weeks ago, man, going down to Austin. And I'm sure you heard what I said. I meant every word, the hospitality I felt. Texas hospitality I learned about. It hit different. It's the best hospitality I felt the entire tour. The fine folks of Austin, Texas, and had a blast, man. It was, it was a trip where I was like, man, I could live here. Although all the Texas folks are like, enjoy Austin, just don't move here. We got enough people. But no, it was great. Again, the hospitality is incredible, and obviously as of like 15 minutes ago, I'll be linking up with a lot of those same Texas folks in Atlanta. Can't wait. It's going to be a blast, man. And so I appreciate you having us on.
Horns, I keep telling them all the time, you got to be in the Lone Star State for true Southern hospitality. It's a completely different brand than what you get out in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. It is.
And I will tell you, people would probably fight me over this. They heard me say it. The barbecue.
Man, the barbecue in
good
Texas
as I've had it.
I don't even know.
It's awesome. And I only had Terry Black's. I mean, I've heard there's even Terry Black's was
Terry Black's is one of the standards of Austin, but there are so many hole in the wall places that just make your mouth water.
Well, we'll be back for spring for baseball, basketball. So I got to hit some of the other spots, but man, Austin was such a good time and had such a great time with all those Longhorn folks. I'm honestly, man, I mean it. I'm really happy for Texas folks the season they've had and #1 signing class. Things are going well. I keep telling folks, Horn, I don't know what God y'all prayed to or what y'all sacrificed to have Oklahoma doing so poorly and y'all doing so well, but here we are.
Well, they kicked our ass for about 25 years is one thing that happened. And then we lived through like 10, 12 years of just pure absolute hell. I don't think most fans can understand the hell because, like, everybody's always hated Texas. And then as soon as Texas went down a little bit, man, it was like kick the guy while he's down, jump him, and let's kick his ass. And, man, it was a rough 12 years to be a Texas fan. I never got to the point where I was like, I can't watch this anymore. But I had some friends, and these guys are like diehard Texas fans. And they're like, dude, I'm just going to go like cut the grass or something. Like, I can't watch this happen. It's almost like watching somebody you love, like, just go through something really tragic or pass away. It's really tough to watch. That was Texas football for a very long time for us. So
opening losses to Maryland are certainly not the way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Losses to Kansas.
Yeah. Losses to Kansas twice. God. Yeah. I mean, we've paid our dues, Chris. That's how we got where we're at. That's all it is.
It's a beautiful thing to watch when you talk to people in the Big 12 and say, we own Texas. And it's like, yeah, well, enjoy it while you can, because of now that those days are over.
Yeah. And I live in Lubbock, man. And I have to listen to shit from Texas Tech people And man, it's been fun. We moved up here in about 2015. We moved up here from Central Texas, and man, I'd wear my stuff all over town, and I had kids coming up to me, man, you're wearing the wrong shirt. What's wrong with you? And then I'd just be, buying something from the store. Oh, you're pretty brave. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? Like, it's like they've never seen a person not wear a Texas Tech garment before.
Well,
so
to be fair, they were going through the same crap that you were before Joey McGuire arrived. I mean, so it's not like that they understand the pain, and they're like, we're embarrassed to wear it for ourselves.
yeah,
So
the biggest thing Texas A&M did that screwed Texas over was leave the Big 12 and let us become the target for the Tech fans. But Tech and A&M had like a pretty good little nasty thing going back and forth together. They hated each other. I mean, Tech put the goalpost into the stands on the Texas A&M fans in Jones. I'm pretty sure it was in Jones because they beat a really highly ranked A&M team.
Yeah, I remember.
They hated each other.
They had a bad rivalry. Baylor and Texas A&M didn't like each other because they shared the same highway. Out in Texas was just like they were the dominant force, and everyone else was like, "Who's going to claim second place in the state?" Because we didn't even have TCU at the time. Like TCU was in the Mountain West of all places, owning everybody with Andy Dalton at the helm.
Well, and then they came in and started running the show a little bit, made it to a national. I still can't believe that team made it to a national championship, but it is what it is. They paid for it severely at the hands of the Georgia Bulldogs, but they made it. I guess they can say they went.
I'll stand on that one. I will. Listen, Sean, and you know what? Bad takes are already starting tonight. TCU, you have a leg to stand on because you beat Michigan in the Fiesta Bowl. So whenever everybody says, well, why did we put them in? It's like they beat a team that was going to the Natty. Like they won the game.
No. I don't mean I can't believe they got in like they didn't deserve to be in. They 100% did. But I just mean like how? How did that dude get TCU with that roster into the playoffs and then actually win a game?
Because it was
like
Gary Patterson. It was Gary Patterson's roster, and they need to get rid of Gary. That was the entire.
Well, and they had a hell of a quarterback too. That kid was I forgot his name already, but
Max
that kid was
Max
Duggan. Yeah, that dude was all heart, man. You couldn't stop him. He was like kind of like a Sam Ellinger type, not super flashy, but just you weren't going to beat him. He was going to he would kill himself for you not to beat him. So that's good stuff. Well, hey, man, let's talk a little bit of National Signing Day while it's National Signing Day still. I know you guys did a show a little bit earlier on National Signing Day. What kind of surprises happened in the SEC so far today, if any?
Well, surprise. I don't know if it's necessarily a surprise, but I think it's worth noting that Texas is number one. I mean, I think that's wildly impressive. That's not something to gloss over, right? I mean, it's one thing to come in, Sean, year one in the SEC and get to an SEC championship. That was, in my opinion, was expected to a degree. I know there were some out there that were doubting or trying to throw shade or criticism in the preseason, but I think a lot of us thought, looking at this roster, Texas was built to do it. Coming in and being number one in recruiting, again, do you feel like Texas is capable of it? I mean, it goes without saying, but yeah, I mean, I think it's just a statement made. It's continuing to make that statement across the board. Like the whole SEC ready conversation is far and gone at this point. So yeah, for Texas to be number one in recruiting, that was the big thing that jumped out to me. And maybe some things can change. I know this is technically like day one of signing day, but I mean, the classes are pretty much complete. And for Texas to be where they are, I think was what I think was the biggest takeaway for me. Just a huge, huge victory and some really good feelings right now in Austin.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll throw my Alabama love inside a little bit. The fact that Kalen DeBoer in year one was able to kind of say, hey, we're still Alabama and we're going to sell the program and we're going to be a team that you don't want to mess with. They landed their quarterback of the future in Keelan Russell, who had a lot of money that was invested out at SMU. I mean, SMU was paying him a crap ton to stay close to Duncanville. They thought that he was going to be that difference maker. They got Michael Carroll, the interior offensive lineman from IMG Academy. I mean, this is a dude that is built Big Ten model, and he goes on in from the state of Michigan, plays at IMG, and basically Kalen DeBoer tells him, you want to go to the NFL? You come play at the University of Alabama. They were able to go get Dijon Lee, a really good cornerback out of the state of California. Ivan Taylor comes on in from Florida. Derek Meadows from Bishop Gorman flips the last second and leaves LSU. So it actually hurts a rival and helps a new team. Alabama's still Alabama. Whether or not we want to say they belong in the college football playoff this year, whether we want to say that losing to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma is almost unforgivable, the fact that you're able to have that kind of culture built in place and then you establish the foundation and it's not slowing down anytime soon. I mean, Texas, welcome to the SEC, but Kalen DeBoer, welcome to what is being the king of college football.
Yeah, I think it's been really good to see Alabama. I think football's better when Alabama's there and doing well. It's just I don't know, man. There's just something about Alabama, and I never really.
There's a lot of fan bases in the SEC, Sean, that would disagree with you.
They would very much disagree with you.
That's fair, and I probably would too if like things were a little bit different for us right now, and if we had gone to Tuscaloosa and lost that game. But right now, we basically own Alabama, right? So it's not even. I mean, it's like you can't even be mad at them. But seriously, I told my wife, I was like, man, you know, when we watched them, we were sitting out on the patio and we watched them lose to Oklahoma, and we were like, what in the hell is happening right now? Like, this is not right. This should not be happening. I don't know. It's just good to see Alabama. I'm not worried about Alabama anymore. They don't have the man anymore, and I think that's a big deal. It'll be interesting to see how long Alabama can stay Alabama with Kalen DeBoer, and I think he's a really good coach, obviously. But is he going to be able to? I think the thing that always was so impressive about Nick Saban to me was how he could get these guys year after year, these best players in the country. He could not only bring them in, he could keep them, he could develop them, and then he could trick them every single offseason into believing they were not that good and that they had to work their asses off to be a champion again. He did that better than any coach ever has, probably better than any coach ever will. And so it's really, to me, sad that he's not there anymore. We knew it was going to end, but I just hoped it would be like something cool, like he would win the national championship and then just like drop dead at midfield or something, and we'd have like a have a big funeral right there at the national championship game. That's how he would have wanted to go out, I think. So
you're probably not wrong. That's the bad part. I certainly think he'd rather go out that way than on the college game day set. So
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, no, I mean it's to your point, man, Bama's just mortal now. I mean I don't think Bama's not a lesser program. They're like Hercules when he got his powers taken, when he became mortal. He's still Hercules,
really doing
but now you can kill him.
God,
I'm just saying, now you can kill him. I mean, he's still Hercules, but now you can kill him. So
the beauty is going to be at a place like Texas. I think that people don't understand that Steve Sarkisian coming on in from the program underneath a guy like Nick Saban, he had a good understanding about what it would take to win in the SEC. And the reason why, and I brought this up in a video that we were talking about with Oklahoma, the reason why Texas is where it is today and Oklahoma is where it is because of Texas put an emphasis on building up the offensive line and the defensive line and making sure that they had the bodies up front that were good enough to go toe-to-toe with even a Kentucky or an Arkansas on the road. That way they were not going to have any faults. And Oklahoma went for the finesse, and that's a big deal. Where in the SEC, you got to be a meat and potatoes type of conference. The problem is, Sean, there's going to be more parity, I think, ever in the world of college football with the transfer portal and with NIL. Because if you listen to some people that have had the final conversations with Nick, it took less than 24 hours after losing to Michigan. Heartbreak fashion, overtime game. You're a play away from going to the national championship and maybe claiming your 19th title, and Saban no longer being tied with Bear Bryant as the all-time leader in national championship victories at the program. And they're already saying, this is what my NIL deal has to be for me to stick around. And it's sickening. It's a little sickening because of back in the day, you remember how you felt when you lost a game to a rival. This is a game that was going to the national championship. And the first thing out of a young recruit's mouth is, if you don't pay me X amount of dollars, I'm opening up my recruitment again. And so that's going to happen at a lot of programs. And if you don't have sustainability the way that Texas does right now, you are going to fall victim to the moment. And you're watching his programs like South Carolina, and you're watching his programs like Ole Miss, and you're watching his Missouri, and even places such as Florida State. They go out of the portal and they bring in all of these kids that were properly developed underneath the right coaching staffs, and they utilize them to their advantage by paying them a crap ton of money, and they're going to reap the benefits by hopefully winning a national championship that year. So Bama's mortal because of, I think, college football in general is going to get to a morality standpoint where Steve Sarkisian and Kirby Smart may become household figures and really pinnacles of the conference and pinnacles of the state of college football, where they are like Nick Saban. They will trick players into believing you're not good enough. You can't leave in the offseason. You got to stick around here while everyone else is feasting to the wolves. And ultimately, you're trying to build rosters that can go right alongside those in Austin and those in Athens.
Yeah, the flip side, though, is those schools can go out into that same transfer portal and find other guys, diamonds in the rough, guys that, were a little underdeveloped maybe when they went into college. They go to these smaller schools, they show out, and they grow up a little bit. Now, all of a sudden, they're like one of the best players in the country. So it is definitely a different dynamic right now in college football. And I just think for guys like Nick Saban, some of those old school guys, you're seeing it with Dabo Swinney. Like he's like, I'm not doing this. Like, we're just not going to do it. And he's been openly defiant about it in the media and on his shows and all that. He's just like, we're not going to do it. I just wonder how long that type of thought process can last. And to their credit, Clemson kind of bounced back a little bit this year. So I don't know. We'll see. It's probably 5-10 years down the road before we really know. One thing I did want to ask you guys, we're talking about SEC football. And I think we all kind of knew that the SEC was going to be a little different this year than normal, just because you're bringing in 2 extra bodies. They're 2 blue blood bodies. Even teams like Oklahoma that just didn't have a good year, they managed to beat some of the big times in the SEC, managed to play close games with other ones. Did anybody here or anywhere else think that you would ever see Georgia and Alabama be 2 and 3 loss teams in the SEC?
I will say, I think I didn't pick it, but I did see folks out there. I think Cole may have had Georgia as a 2-loss team.
I had Georgia as a 2-loss team.
There were a lot of people out there, I thought, that did, because of the point you're making, Sean, just with the increased parity in the sport, how difficult. I mean, Georgia had a gauntlet of a schedule to go through.
They did.
You factor in stuff like that. I just think, again, parity. I think just like you mentioned, adding Texas and Oklahoma, the schedules are, for a lot of teams got tougher. For some, not so much, but like overall, it's becoming more and more difficult. I don't think you're going to see 3, 4, 5 teams go undefeated per year again, because there is so much parity. So, yeah, I mean, listen, with Alabama, it was kind of the perfect storm, right? I mean, again, you lose the GOAT in Nick Saban, and I didn't go 2 or 3 losses. I think I had Bama 10-2 maybe, but it's not. It's not outside of the scope of like possibility. Like, it's not shocking to me. I think this just is college football now. Like, I think we have to embrace that college football is awesome and there's a lot of parity, and you just kind of go through each Saturday hoping that, your team isn't next. And that's the big thing that, like, turning it to Texas. I know Texas has gotten a lot of crap for their schedule this year. I'm sure it's something on a weekly basis you've probably talked about or what have you. And I mean, listen, did Texas have the hardest schedule in the SEC? No. I think even Texas fans would tell you they didn't. But you got to give Texas a lot of credit, because they didn't have that pitfall, vomit on themselves game that so many others in the league did. I think you got to give Texas credit for that. I mean, other teams in the conference lost to Kentucky. Other teams in the conference lost to Vandy. Other teams in the conference lost to Oklahoma. Other teams in the conference lost to Florida. Like, other teams in the conference lost to A&M. So Texas was able to withstand Arkansas, same thing. So Texas was able to withstand that. So you got to give some credit there. But yeah, man, I think just the talent dispersion because the portal, NIL, to your point, the parity's never been greater. And I think, with a 16-team, no divisions SEC, I think we're going to continue to see that. We might have 1 1-loss team, maybe 2, but for somebody to go undefeated, I don't know that I see it, man. I don't know that I see that anymore. It's going to be a log jam, kind of like what we've seen this season.
Not in the SEC, it won't. I mean, the SEC, you will probably never be able to watch unless they truly built their roster to a point of Avengers-esque, let's go, going up against Ultron type of level. Like, that's how far you have to go to be able, I think, to see an undefeated season. I was very high on Texas. I thought they would go 10-2. I thought they were going to lose to Georgia, and I thought they were going to lose one other trap game simply because of it's the SEC. It's your first year. You're probably going to trip over yourself at some point, and you didn't. And I think that's a major testament to where so many people wanted to put an emphasis on how this offense has looked and how they lost CJ Baxter at the start of the year and how the offensive line at times really was bullied and how there were moments where Quinn Ewers wasn't delivering on his part of the bargain. But then you talk about this defense and you lose Jeff Choate and you lose a couple of players to the draft and the transfer portal. And here comes Johnny Nansen from Arizona and was phenomenal last season. Big reason why they went 10-3. They dominate against almost all competition. They finished with one of the best units in college football. Every single transfer portal player that they brought in hit. And I think that's a major testament to when you know where your faults are on the roster, you utilize your coaches to say, we are not afraid to go spend money. We are not afraid to go bring in players that even if we feel like they can only make one big play, that's fine with us. The thing about Texas that I can really appreciate this year is you watched as Steve Sarkisian pulled a Kirby Smart or pulled a Nick Saban. He'll grab a dude that probably would start and become an all ACC player. And that guy will make one play on third down against Arkansas. And it's like, yep, that's why I brought him in. And we don't really care. Like, he'll never see the field once again. But that's what happens when you talk about a guy that wants to win at this level. And that's what Texas did this past year.
Yeah. And back to Chris's point, about I think the thing that's so surprising to me about Georgia and Alabama is like the losses they had. It would probably be smart to go look at that schedule and say, man, they could probably lose 2 games. They could probably lose 3 games, but you would never expect it to be Vanderbilt, Oklahoma. If you're Alabama, you would have never expect Ole Miss to drop one to Kentucky at home the way they did. And that's what's been really wild to me.
Georgia, Sean, is the most excusable. I mean, you lose at Alabama, in a night game in Tuscaloosa. I was at that game, pure just madhouse. And then, I was at the game at Ole Miss, and I mean, shoot, what I thought about those teams in the preseason. I mean, I give Georgia a little more grace. I think Georgia, what's been so surprising with them, it's, they went 10-2, but it's how they've looked in virtually every game outside of the Texas game. I mean, really, like, they've just, even coming into the Texas game, that's why one of the reasons everybody was picking Texas is they had struggled with Mississippi State. They looked very sluggish against Auburn. Like, it's to me, I've been more so surprised with like what they've done against the lesser of the competition. That's why, again, I was at Samford for the Tennessee game a few weeks ago. That's why that was so impressive, because I think Tennessee, even that one, they're tied at half, but Tennessee's obviously a college football playoff team, the way that Carson Beck played in that football game. But look at the Georgia Tech game, man. It took them 8 overtimes. We could be having a very different conversation about
Absolutely.
Georgia right now, how they dropped that one. So, yeah, it's Georgia. It's been a curious case of, it's almost like when Georgia wants to play well, they are truly the definition this season of playing at the level of competition. Ole Miss is the one team that just thoroughly beat them start to finish, which is what makes Ole Miss so frustrating, especially for Cole, such a supporter of Darth Vader. Just feels like they completely squandered it, because at Ole Miss's best, they're good enough to do what they did to Georgia. I left that night, Sean, thinking this might be the best team in the country. Really, truly, like, they're built like the best team in the country. But anyways,
Chris, I still believe that they are at times the best team in the country. Unfortunately, they're the best team in the country that's not going to the playoff, which, again, if you ask anybody how I felt last night when I saw the rankings, there should have been a scenario where there wasn't a conversation about Ole Miss getting in. It was so funny that we were talking about Alabama and South Carolina. And I'm a big South Carolina supporter. I think that the Gamecocks, the War Chickens, have done wonders for me. They're helping pay some bills. I love the Gamecocks. But Ole Miss had an argument. And it's like we just threw them to the wayside because of a Kentucky loss. Meanwhile, they beat the brakes on the road against South Carolina. They won by 24 points. Alabama won by 2.
And they didn't lose by 21 to Oklahoma.
They curb stomped Oklahoma. They won by 12 points in that game, and they really controlled the entire second half. Alabama lost on the road by 21. The only game that you could really come close to saying that's even comparable is the LSU game, because the LSU game they lost, and they lost on a game-winning touchdown pass from Garrett Nussmeier as time in overtime. Meanwhile, you have Alabama losing on the road to Vanderbilt, and then we throw in strength of schedule, strength of record, strength of conference, all these other things. It bodes well in Alabama's favor, but then you look at the head-to-head margin of victory, it's in favor of Ole Miss. The head-to-head margin of defeat, it's in favor of Ole Miss, and they both had ranked wins. And meanwhile, here's Miami coming on board, and they're sitting at number 12, which again, Ward Manuel, why the hell are you talking at this point? All you're doing is you're creating more fires that you can't extinguish. And you're saying that for one breath, Alabama is as good as Miami, if not better than Miami, but South Carolina that has more ranked wins than you, and Ole Miss that has more ranked wins than you, aren't as good as you because the logo plays a factor into it. And that, at the end of the day, that's what it came down to. And that's, I think, the more infuriating part. I completely understand why Alabama fans are excited to be in the college football playoff if things go their way. I understand the frustration from both of them. But the frustration really should be, why was Ole Miss not viewed in the same light as Miami when they have more ranked wins?
Yeah, the whole thing's a mess. And I tweeted out the other day, I saw something and I just kind of quote tweeted it, I think. The fallacy with the 12-team playoff was, I think a lot of people thought this would go away to some extent, but it never was going to go away. You were always going to have these teams on the bubble that all had these great arguments, or maybe not even great arguments, but somebody likes them for some reason. Like we're talking about Miami. That one's a bad. I mean, I know they've won, but they're terrible. They're going to get beat down in the playoff once they get to some good teams. But what I think is different this year that not a lot of people expected was nobody expected it to be Alabama down there at that bubble. Nobody expected it to be Ole Miss down there at that bubble. The blue bloods like that all thought, we're good. We're good. We're going to be out of that mess.
Sean,
and it just hasn't happened.
Have you ever seen the meme of the one astronaut looking at the Earth and the other astronaut behind him holding the gun at his head? And it's
I haven't.
Well, then you may not get what I'm going to say. Have you seen that meme, Cole? You know what I'm talking? Okay,
Yeah,
so the meme where it's always like
always
something like
been.
this, and it's like always has been. That's how I imagine it's like that one astronaut in front's like Alabama, and the guy behind him's the college football playoff. He's like, always has been Alabama.
Yeah, yeah. So, but the thing
God's
is, like,
favorite, Cole. You're God's favorite.
Of course I am. I know that we are. I tell everybody, listen.
How did he get that mustache? He's God's favorite.
I'm God's favorite.
Alabama alum. God.
I tell people all the time. I got in an argument last night for 3 hours in my Alabama group chat with friends. I don't care that you're excited to go to the college football playoff because they're still mad at me that I'm not gung-ho about Alabama going. And I say my job is to cover the sport with a pure, passionate fan base, but more importantly, with non-crimson and white tinted goggles. I'm going to look at it from a fair perspective. Alabama can say that they're in. That's fine. Also say that you don't belong when you lose by double digits to Oklahoma on the road and you lose to Vanderbilt. You got
Sean,
lucky.
I give Cole and Dave this permission. If Alabama goes on an unprecedented run and makes the national title, you can do whatever content, pregame, postgame, whatever, in Alabama gear.
Yeah.
You're welcome to. Pull the homerism out. We need it. Pull it out.
It has to happen if Kalen DeBoer does it in year one. It literally is, because it's like, oh, we're talking about Cinderella, and like you go ahead and you reveal the mascot. Oh, it's Kalen DeBoer. Hello, Alabama. Roll Tide. Just like that's all it is, because that's what the 12-team playoff does. That's the Cinderella story right now. Think about this, boys. Is Arizona State as a Big 12 champion or SMU as an ACC champion? Those are the Cinderella teams alongside Alabama. Like, that's the Cinderella story that we're talking.
Yeah.
Or Clemson. Clemson at 9-3 that lost last week to South Carolina. That's Cinderella.
Yeah. So to that point, who stands to lose the most if Clemson does end up beating SMU? Because I don't think the committee's going to take SMU out of it.
Alabama
for losing that game.
Alabama.
They're the ones sweating.
That's what I think too. But
I tell you, boy, oh boy, we will really find out if there's Alabama bias if SMU drops out. We will. We will really. Here's the thing. I think it's going to happen. I think SMU will drop out. Based off Ward Manuel saying, now that I think about it, like based off Ward Manuel saying, well, we put him there. There's no other data points. So he's essentially insinuating, well, I mean, we put Bama at 11 to keep him at 11.
Yeah.
That's how it comes off. And then he's asked, could SMU fall below Alabama if they lose the ACC title to Clemson? His answer was, quote, potentially yes, end quote.
Well, here's the deal. It comes down to what is the point of victory. If somehow, okay, please tell me, Christopher.
It also depends on like the style of game, Cole. Like if they lost the game 7-3,
sure, but okay,
then
but
it'd be like, oh God, they both look terrible, but one of them's got to go.
Well, because we saw that last year with Florida State. We saw that all they asked Florida State to do was don't look like an awful offense without Jordan Travis.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about so many factors. What if, God forbid, I mean, knock on wood, I don't want this. What if SMU's like best player gets hurt in the game?
He already got hurt. He got hurt before this. He got hurt.
Well, whoever, second best. I don't know SMU like that. But like, what if their quarterback goes down? Like, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of factors. They'll look for any reason, I think, to keep Bama in.
Yeah, of course they will, because it's Alabama. They know it's a ratings number.
And listen, Sean, I'll be honest. I hope they do. More content for us. Great. Listen,
nobody at SECUnfiltered is complaining about.
Love that. I hope they do get in. Like, great.
What you're complaining about is if it was a 40-point differential, SMU is not going to stay in it.
Yeah, of course.
But if you're trying to talk about being fair to the sport, to where you won't see teams go and they'll take the penalty for not going to the conference championship, then you got to put SMU in if they lose by 3. I'm sorry, that's the problem.
The precedent. Yeah, that's the precedent you're about to set. And I think, you talk about the 14 playoff in Florida State. I see that argument a lot. I don't think it holds any water at all because it's completely different. We're 3 times bigger now than we were last year in the playoff. So a lot more teams to try to sift through. So it's a little bit different scenario. You're talking about in a 14 playoff deciding who goes into the semifinals. Now we're talking about who has to play 3 games before they even get to the national championship game. So, I don't know. Or 3 games and a national championship game, whatever. I'm bad at math tonight, but
Sean, let me ask you out of curiosity, because I've had this argument for months now with people. There are so many FSU fans that continue to complain about the committee leaving them out. They shouldn't be mad at the committee. They should be mad at Georgia. They should easily be mad at Georgia because here's the reason. If Georgia wins that football game, all 4 teams are undefeated. You don't leave out an undefeated team when the other 3 are undefeated. But instead, they want to blame the committee because if they didn't look good and Georgia didn't look good, and that was the case in point argument.
Well, hell, Georgia fans have got PTSD going in this one Saturday. They feel like they need to win to get in, even though I think we'd all agree they're going to be in no matter what. But they're so scorned over last year. They're like, well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know, because I posted a few weeks ago, like, there's no way. I'm like, guys, come on, let's find something else to talk about. An SEC championship game losers not getting left out. Come on. And Georgia fans were blowing me up, like, you say that.
Well, they're going to be a 3-loss team if they lose. And so I don't know. I mean, I get the whole – so I saw you guys talking about strength of schedule. I saw y'all's – and I think they were mildly facetious, right? Like, I know you guys don't really believe that it's all strength of schedule. Like, you have to weigh all the factors. But you guys were pretty heavy last week about strength of schedule. Why are we even having this conversation? Man, have you guys seen the BCS? They still keep that. They still keep that thing going. It's almost exactly – I mean, in fact, I might come real close to accusing the college football committee of just going and looking at the BCS and saying that's our teams right now. I'm not even kidding. It is that close. I think it's 1 team off.
I believe South Carolina is in and Boise State's out or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. So very close. Anyway, so I what I've always been in favor of, like 15 years ago when BCS was still around and everybody's complaining about it, and we should have kept the BCS and then picked how many teams we were going to have in a playoff and just take those top, whatever it's 10, 8, I don't give a shit. That's how many teams. And we just let the computer tell us who the best 10 teams are. And then there's no argument, because you don't get to interview a computer that's not prepared for an interview and says something stupid 5 weeks ago that now catches them at the end of the season when everybody's like, well, you said 5 weeks ago this, now you're going against that to get Alabama in. And that's what's going to happen. If certain scenarios play out, there's going to be something. Somebody's going to catch something and start complaining about it. But it's I don't know, man. I like the expanded playoffs. A lot of people don't. I've seen like Josh Payton. I don't watch all of his content. I don't have time, but I see stuff every once in a while. He's like, I never thought we should go to 12 teams. And probably that JD dude, he probably says the same thing. I don't know.
Well, there's a Mr. Cole Thompson.
What? No, there's none of those things. I have no idea.
Hey, you know what's even worse than what you're saying, Sean? Because I will say this. I am proudly one that always said that an expanded playoff will not hurt the sport. College football is always going to be awesome. It's people that were saying the games aren't going to matter was a lazy take and a lazy narrative. And it was. This season has proved it was. But what's even worse, Sean, the reason I say that, because, again, I'm a day one OG, wasn't against expanded playoff. A playoff works in every other sport. Every other one it works. But for some reason in college football, God forbid that the regular season is so special that it'll just ruin the whole thing, which, again, this season has proved they were wrong. What's even worse, though, Sean, is you got a lot of people. There's a lot of people in college football media that said one thing 3 years ago. Now they're saying something else today. I'm not going to name names, but they're out there. They're out there.
No.
I'm not talking about you, Cole.
I'm going to hold you accountable because you do that. I do it too. I still to this day am not a fan of 12 teams. I said 8 because 8, we don't get rid of the Pac-12.
Okay, that's fair. That's fine.
You put the SEC representative in, you put the Big Ten representative in, and then when your award manual asks, why doesn't a team from the ACC get a shot? Why doesn't the Big 12 get a second team? You look them dead in the eye and go, okay, let's pull up the revenue of the schools that they provide. Let's throw in the rating standpoint on why a team like Iowa State versus a team such as Alabama as the runner-up, how the numbers will contribute. And then you go, that's why we have 8 teams. And that's why those teams are in. And it's an easy argument because now we're sitting here truly having a debate. Who is the best? I can't even say it without wanting to vomit. Who is the best? Okay, hang on. Who is the best 9-3 team that belongs in the college football play? It's just disgusting to say out loud. Yeah, that hurts me. It pains my soul, Sean. It pains my soul, Chris. 8 would have been fine because we would have had 10-2, and 10-2 would have been easy.
Yeah,
well,
but here's the thing.
I think the takeaway this year is we got to get rid of auto bids. I think Cole agrees. We got to get rid of auto bids.
I don't like that. I think, and I said it like, I don't know, when it was like after the first couple weeks of the college football rankings and everybody's completely overreacting at that point. Like, this is bullshit and getting in arguments about stuff like, dude, we got 5 weeks of the season to go. What are we even talking about this for? But I was like, it's the auto bids. That's the problem. That's what's going to be the thing that blows up the playoff scenario for actual teams with a chance to go win it. And I think that's the other side. You know, should the playoff be the teams that deserve to be in the playoff, or should the playoff be teams that actually have a chance to go win the playoff?
And how do you define deserve? You know, I mean,
well, that's the big debate, and that's, you know, you guys are all on the strength of schedule thing, and other people are all, and I'm in the middle. But I will say this: I think you play football games to win, and if your argument is, well, I've got this really good loss, I don't want to hear that argument because you lost. The goal of a football game is to go win the game. And I'm not suggesting we should all schedule Boise State or, you know, Tulsa or a bunch of Division I AA. I still call it Division I AA. I will to the day I die. I don't even know what it's called.
It's proper name.
Yeah. So I'm not saying we go do that. But the thing people miss about this whole, you know, strength of schedule thing, in my opinion, is we're playing 8 games in a conference where we don't get to choose who we play. None of us. So you go win what you can win, and you win your out-of-conference games. You try to schedule good ones. They schedule those games like 6 years out sometimes, 7 years out sometimes. You never know what's going to happen in one of those either. So I think there's got to be a better balance between just, I think this team looks really good to me. I think they're more deserving because they've played tougher teams. And, well, hey, man, I'm over here. I've won all my games but 1, or all my games but 2, or maybe I've won them all.
I brought this up before where it was every conference goes to 8 games. Just every single one. Not this 9 games anymore. Everyone just goes to 8. What you do is that 2 of those games that are out of conference, they have to be against opponents from P4 programs. And then at the end of the day, you look at the records between the P4 programs going up in head-to-head conferences. And depending on how the records bode in P4 victories out of conference, that's how you decide how many teams get in per conference. Because that's fair. Because then if you're saying that there is a winning percentage of 55% for the ACC, there's a winning percentage of 52% for the Big 12, and a winning percentage of 81% for the SEC and 78% for the Big 10, nobody can complain, because if you're playing matchups against ACC opponents, SEC opponents, and Big 10 opponents, if you're in the Big 12, or Big 12 opponents, ACC opponents, and SEC opponents if you're in the Big 10. 8 games. You make it 8. Everyone's at 8. 4 out of conference games. 2 have got to be against P4 opponents.
How's the SEC going to do that though? They don't ever play the legacy SEC guys don't play Power 4 or Power.
Yeah. See, I knew this was going to come up.
Yeah.
We're going to throw the Mercer game in there. Throw it out. You got to throw the Mercer game out.
I mean,
and where does the end of season scrimmage fit into all this, Cole?
You're allowed 1, but then you also have to be allowed 1 in the Big 12, and you have to be allowed 1 in the ACC. However,
listen, those in-state FCS matchups do a lot of good for those small schools.
Sanford gets a lot.
I know they do.
Listen, Mercer's program is literally being supported by that check Alabama wrote them.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't hate the game so much. I hate the time of the year where the game happens. Like, why is Georgia? Why? Oh no, not
UMass,
like why
the Georgia UMass game.
Yeah, why is that even happening in November or late October, whenever it happened? Like,
well, let me Sean. Okay,
around by 10 points.
Sean, let me ask you this: would you rather it happen in November or have an Ole Miss schedule where they played nobody for the first month? I mean, we were their first. God bless Cole and Dave and all of us really trying to do previews on Ole Miss and Furman. We were doing our somehow, some way. We were going 20 minutes. Talking about Ole Miss and the Paladins. God bless us.
I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you do that.
I don't know how we did it either, but, we did it.
I think what's even harder is
we're just sickos. That's it.
You've done that for 4 weeks. How do you actually determine how they're going to play against a real team?
Well, they played Kentucky and lost.
And they lost the first game.
That's how they did.
Well, I bet none of y'all had that, though, is what I'm saying.
Hell no.
No,
because y'all watched them beat people 77-3 and like all this crap.
Oh,
I don't know.
Dude, Jackson Dart, Trey Harris had like 1,500 yards receiving after the first month of the season.
No, what was so funny is if you look at Trey Harris's stat line in the first 4 games, you look at Trey Harris's stat line in the SEC, it's night and day. The injury factored in, but
he didn't play for a month and was still leading the conference in receiving yards.
What was also so dumb, and I can't believe that this is actually still the fact, is you go back and you watch that game against Kentucky. And that's the only game I actually blame Jackson Dart for. That's the only one. Because there are 19 catches to Trey Harris. There are 4 catches to every other wide receiver in that game. Like, they just built that relationship so well against FCS teams. And they said, it's Kentucky. We're going to be fine. Nope.
Fair enough. So we all agree we have no real answer, and nobody can agree on what the answer is for college football playoff. Maybe St. Nick.
It's like, whose line is it anyway? It's like, whose line is it anyway? Just made
Points
up.
Don't matter.
Yeah. Maybe St. Nick will get put in some sort of position or build some sort of organization that can bring some rules
Let's just do that.
back to college football.
Nick Saban's top 12 power rankings. That's the playoff.
Well, I would just be happy if
Nick Saban would be in every year.
I just want him to step up and overthrow something and just say, this is how we're going to do NIL. This is how transfer portal is going to work. This is how playoffs going to work, and y'all can all shut up because I'm Nick Saban. Who's going to argue with Nick Saban?
Thinking about that, though, Sean, that's probably why, like, you think about it, he's going on McAfee and all that stuff. McAfee at any point can be like, well, Coach, who'd be in your playoff? The reason they would never do that is because
it would influence it.
You think Ward Manuel's got to – oh, yeah, to influence it too, but, God, you think Ward Manuel's got it tough now. It's like, let Nick Saban voice his opinion on it. It would really send it into a frenzy.
Oh yeah, he'd be illegitimate immediately. Nobody. I don't even know who Ward Manuel is. I got to be honest. So I mean, I know he's on the committee, but I don't know anything outside. I'm pretty head down on Texas, y'all. In case y'all didn't know,
he's very close with Connor Stallions. Let's just throw that.
Oh, okay, nice. All right, well, let's talk this SEC championship game a little bit before I let you guys get out of here. So let's go back to October 19th. Obviously not the game Texas wanted to have at home in really their first, what turned out to be their first really big matchup of the season against a team that, had just lost to Alabama, hadn't looked good in some other games. I think the whole football world kind of thought like Texas was going to put a little beat down on Georgia. Just absolutely didn't happen. Kind of went the opposite. But what I want to hear from you guys, I want your take on, I hear all the time, Georgia just absolutely dominated Texas in Austin. You see it all over Twitter. What's y'all's take on how that game went down? Because I know I have my take. I want to hear y'all's.
Yeah, I think Georgia's defense dominated the game, dictated the game. 7 sacks. But, a lot of short fields for the Dogs. I mean, I think that's – you look at how that game went. Georgia offensively still was not very good. Carson Beck, 3 picks. I mean, we all – again, we all watched it. They jumped out to a big early lead. It's 23-0. At that point, you're in such a hole that, it's just going to be hard to come back from. But, I mean, Georgia wasn't wildly impressive. I mean, again, they won the game. Here's the thing, Sean. There's 2 ways you can look at that game. From the Georgia perspective, going into this one, you can go, well, certainly Carson's not going to play that bad again. So we're in a great spot. We beat him by 15. He played terribly, right? If you're Texas, you say, I mean, there's no way we're getting into a 23-0 hole again. So, I mean, listen, we didn't play that bad in the second half. We've been playing better of late. Our defense has gotten even better. Quinn is doing a lot of good things. The running game's coming along with Trey Wise. We're in an even better spot. We feel good. So I think both sides, you can look at it both ways. Georgia dominated the game defensively. That was the big thing, and I think that'll be the big question for Texas with a banged-up Kelvin Banks too. And what's interesting about rematches, you got one side in like Texas, they're going back to the drawing board. They're scrapping everything they did. So if you're Georgia, you're like, do we do the same thing we did? Or do we make a move? But what if Texas does the same thing and then we made a move? And then it's like you can almost like outthink yourself in a rematch. So that'll be the fun cat and mouse game between Sark and Kirby. But no, I mean, listen, I give Georgia a lot of credit. And listen, SEC Unfiltered, we were on it. I had this sick feeling in my stomach after we previewed that game. And all 3 of us, Sean, went Texas by double digits. And it was like,
yeah.
Dang, really?
Ouch.
So, it was like, ooh, it's not that – typically it's not that easy. And, Kirby Smart, give him credit, man. He got the best version of that Georgia team. And Texas didn't play well. We'll put it that way. They didn't play well at home. So, I think multiple things can be true at once. I think Georgia played well, dominated the game. Also, that wasn't the best version of Texas. And so, we'll see what we get in round 2.
Texas had 3 turnovers in that game and 1 scoring drive off it. Georgia had 4 turnovers in that game. They had 3 scoring drives off it. I mean, that's the case. When you get free chances to be able to find a way into the end zone, you have to take advantage of it. And that's what Georgia did, and that's what Texas didn't do. So they're going to have to take those advantages in every way possible. I think the other point is that there was a moment in the game where they turned to Arch Manning. And I personally didn't agree with that move at all. I didn't. And the reason why was because I figured instead of trying to change up quarterbacks and then eventually going back to Quinn, change up your personnel, change up what your style is, change up on how you're going to do the up tempo, change up if you want to run it on first down, maybe start passing it on first and second and then running it and giving yourself advantages to where you throw the defense off balance and switch some things up. Don't switch up your quarterback who is going to be bullied behind an offensive line that's already being bullied. This is a veteran. This is somebody who has been in this system before, and he's played in these type of games. I mean, so many people, and I bring this up to Chris and Dave all the time, and I have to. They don't like to bring up that he marched in last year to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and single-handedly was the reason why they beat Alabama in Nick Saban's backyard against a Nick Saban-led team. They forget that they also watched as Quinn Ewers in the Big 12 championship against Oklahoma State set a conference record for the most passing yards and passing touchdowns by a quarterback. And he got to take the belt and go to a new conference to where it's like, you're never going to beat me at this. And so he got to walk off in just double fisting bird style saying, guess what? I'm him. And you had to keep that game plan. And instead you went to Arch Manning. When you watch as Quinn is under duress in this game, you have to switch up your plan, not switch up your quarterback. That doesn't mean you can't have design runs with a guy like Arch, especially because let's be real. Who the hell had Arch Manning on the bingo card being the first person in 13 years to score against Texas A&M? Yours truly didn't. I guarantee you nobody had that. And if you did, congratulations on being a multi-millionaire for making that bet. You can have design runs with Arch. You have to trust Quinn. Because if you brought Quinn back to be in this type of game, and I've said this for a while, I know that there is a side of the fan base that truly believes that Arch Manning is the right fit for this year. You have to realize that you brought Quinn Ewers back to win you this game and win you a playoff game and win you a national championship. Arch could have started probably 10 games this year and he would have gone 10-0. You brought him back for A&M. You brought him back for Georgia. You brought him back for the SEC championship. Now you got those 3 games to waste, got to show out.
Yeah. I mean, I think my take on that game, the first one, Well, I think Georgia just absolutely ambushed Texas on defense in a lot of the same way that Oklahoma ambushed Alabama a couple weeks ago in Norman with that quarterback running game that they obviously weren't prepared for. Same thing with LSU and Texas A&M. A&M brings in Reed, and they run the ball all over LSU in that game. LSU is in complete control of that game until that point in the game. I think what happened was Kirby Smart rolled the dice. He said, I got to be able to get some pressure, and he did, and he brought it, and it worked. I'm not taking anything away from him, but to your point, Chris, I wonder if we see that same type of look, because Georgia, I've watched quite a bit of tape on Georgia. They don't really do that much. I mean, they bring pressure a lot, and they'll bring four from different places a lot, but they don't really line up 6 dudes on the line of scrimmage and just bring the damn house all the time like they did against Texas a lot in that game, especially from about, a minute left in the first quarter through the second quarter is when that game got won by Georgia. And you're right, the defense just totally dominated the Texas offense for that 16-minute stretch. 3 turnovers, I think they had almost all their sacks in that second quarter. It was big time. And I just wonder, to your point, if Kirby Smart's willing to do that again, because Sark and that offensive staff, let's assume they were ambushed and they just didn't expect that. And that's what I really feel like that's part of it. They're ready for it now, and that offensive line is going to be ready for it now. They'll have a plan for that. So I wonder if Kirby says, let's let them build a plan for that, and we won't even do that. We'll just do what we do. You're right. It's going to be really cool to see how that game plays out. I think the matchup that's not going to change at all is the Georgia offense against the Texas defense. I think Georgia just does what Georgia does offensively, and that's what they're going to do. And Texas is the same way. You don't see a lot of wrinkles out of Texas. I think this Texas A&M game last week was the most I've ever gone, what the hell are they doing on defense? Because they normally just pretty much line up and say, we're going to be better than you. And they threw a little bit of stuff at that Texas A&M offense that I don't think they were ready for either. And they obviously dominated that game as well. So going into the game on Saturday, though, what do you guys think's the biggest key matchup? Like, and let's make it like not an obvious one. Let's not make it like, oh, we got to win the trenches, because we all know that. What y'all's like key spot in this game? Where do you see the tide turning in this game, and what's that on?
I want to go back something to Sean you said too about the matchup between Georgia's offense and Texas's defense. I think Texas's defense, they were elite when they took on Georgia. I think they're even maybe to a next level now, where it's like you look at that, like it's truly championship level from the Longhorns to the South. The other thing too is, and I brought up this point, and I had some Texas folks that were very quick to let me know about the competition of late, but I think Carson Beck's playing a lot better.
Yeah,
I do. He is. I don't care who he's playing against. He wasn't playing well coming into the Texas game, and it's not like they were playing elite level competition. I mean, he wasn't doing great against like Mississippi State. So 11 touchdowns, no picks for Beck over the last 3 games. I was at that Tennessee game where something clicked for him. He just turned it on. He looked like the Carson Beck of old. And so I think that's the one thing. And I guess, you mentioned what's the not obvious matchup here. I feel like Beck against the Georgia defense the Texas defense is very obvious, but I do think it's a key. I mean, I think if Carson Beck plays turnover-free football, you can probably say the same thing about Quinn, but especially Beck, if he plays turnover-free football, I think that's going to change the dynamic for Georgia offensively, put them in a good spot. I would say go with a matchup. I think whoever's lined up against Kelvin Banks or his replacement is going to be a big part of this game in regards to getting pass rush or getting in the backfield. I mean, I think if you're Kirby and Georgia, you want to live in Quinn Ewers' back pocket again. So I will be curious to see what, to your point, are they, no pun intended, sending the dogs? And, I just think that matchup on the edge specifically, protecting Quinn's blind side, going to go a long way. Because I think Quinn has shown, man, and many quarterbacks this way, of course, but you get back there and you rat him a little bit, you can get the football off of him. So then that's exactly what happened the first time.
For me, it comes down to switching the numbers. Plain and simple, switching the numbers. And what do I mean by that? It was 29 rushing yards. It needs to be 92 or above. You have to switch the numbers. It has to be 92. You have to trust what you have in Jaden Blue. You have to trust what you have in Wisner. If Jared Gibson can be a factor in this game, it can. Arch Manning with his legs. You got to be able to utilize it. You can't be living in 3rd and long and giving away your playbook of, we have to pass on this down. And you got to switch up the playbook a little bit. You have to be willing to get in your kitchen sink and not be afraid to run some trick plays on 1st down. And I mean, to open the game and catch the defense off guard, run it 6 or 7 times and make them stop you to where you now can finally take the top off of defense to a Ryan Wingo, a Matthew Golden, a Gunnar Helm. I mean, Gunnar Helm and Matthew Golden have been 2 of the most underappreciated players in the SEC this year, simply based off of how consistent they are in the passing game for Quinn and for Arch. They really haven't missed a beat. I think that that's really going to be beneficial, but the rushing attack has been the backbone of this team. When they can win football games, you have to be able to run the ball, dictate the time possession, flip the numbers. 29 has got to be 92 or more.
The other one, Sean, I was just going to say really quickly, the other one, I think winning one-on-ones in this game obviously is going to be huge. And I look at both sets of playmakers. I trust Texas's playmakers more, Golden, Bolden, Bond, Gunnar Helm. Georgia's have struggled with drops. They've come on of late. They've been much better. But who is it going to be for the Dogs? Is it Dylan Bell? Is it Oscar Delp? Is it Jurasic? Is it London Humphreys? Is it Anais Smith? Who are the guys helping Carson Beck out? I think
Arian Smith, for starters.
Arian Smith, excuse me. Sorry, yeah, I messed that up. Guys winning in a game like this, man, it really does come down to who wins more of their one-on-ones, who wins those one-on-one battles. It's a lot of what this game, because I think both can stress each other vertically. That's what I will say. The one thing about the Texas defense I will say is that, I don't know that A&M could really stress them vertically. I know Kentucky couldn't. So I think Georgia can. They've got the quarterback to do it. And so I think those battles down the field are going to – and Texas can do the same to Georgia. So we might see some big plays in this one. I mean, Cole mentioned that. He's expecting a higher scoring game. It's, against a Texas or Georgia defense, it is very hard to go 10, 12 plays and manufacture drives. If you're going to get one on over Texas, you're probably going to get one on over the top and beat them in a big play. So, the secondaries, I think, will be tested in this game.
Yeah, or, you're talking about helping Carson Beck. Does that Georgia running game maybe come alive a little bit? They haven't been good this year, but to the point.
And no ETN in this game either, who was huge in that first matchup.
Yeah, but I think Kirby Smart's kind of suffered. When it's not Kirby Smart, it's Mike Bobo, but he's kind of done the same thing that Sark has done this year. And at times they just get away from that running game. It's like they're too impatient to play one of these. You guys remember back in like the late 2000s when the SEC was really starting to come on, and you would see these big time SEC matchups where the score's like 14-12 or 17-16 with like a minute and 10 seconds left, and somebody figures out a way to make a play to win the game, right?
Of course.
All these coaches today are afraid. They're not patient enough to play that kind of game. If I'm Georgia and I'm Texas, I'm running the ball like almost exclusively in this game until I find a spot. I'm going to pick a spot. I'm going to try to get the ball down the field. And if I have to punt, that's okay. Let's play some field position. I think the thing, I agree with you 100%, Cole. Texas has to be able to just consistently run it. They don't have to be consistently good running the football, but they cannot have, I think they had like, I looked at it the other day. It was like 5 carries in the first half against Georgia. And everybody will say, well, oh, they were playing from behind. No, dude, they weren't playing from behind with 5 carries. They simply just quit doing it because it wasn't going for 5, 6, 7 yards at a pop. I think Steve Sarkisian, and this is the only thing you will ever hear me gripe about Steve Sarkisian or even say negatively about Steve Sarkisian.
I'll say it because I've already said it probably a million times.
He abandons the run for like these weird stretches. He just won't do it. And I'm like, why? Like they'll rip off a 5-yard run and he'll pass it 3 straight times. I'm like, what are we doing?
I have said for the last 2 years that Steve Sarkisian gets cute with the play calling because he's bored. He gets really just sometimes running it down someone's throat works, and he gets
it does.
Last week, okay, and I get so much flack for this. Texas fans are wonderful people. Let me just start off with that. I'm married into a Texas family. But all I said was that why are you throwing the football inside the 2-yard line? Why? Why last week?
Yeah.
Oh, at least a 97-yard touchdown for Will Lee. Like, you were pitching a shutout. You're walking away with 3 points, or you're walking away with 7 running the football. But Steve got too cute with the play calling.
Yeah, I'll agree with you till it changes. But we've seen it since he got here. When he's really just said, I got to run the football, and we're going to run the football, they almost always do it.
Yeah.
And they almost always do it really well, and they always win when they do it. So I agree with you 100%, Cole. They got to do that. I think we're like, this one's a little obvious, but you talk about flipping numbers. They got to get after Carson Beck this Saturday like they got after Quinn Ewers in October. They got to flip that as well, I think, at least a little bit. It may not ever look as bad as it did on October 19th, but they've got to get some more pressure on Carson Beck. We didn't see a lot of pressure against Beck in the first matchup. They still got some turnovers, so it wasn't all for naught. But I think those are the things. Quick, you guys have done your predictions. Throw them out there real quick for me before we get out of here.
So I got 34-31 final score. I think this is going to be a back-and-forth game between Quinn and Carson. I actually do believe that this is going to be their best performances, and we're going to see why several NFL evaluators believe that these were the top 2 passers going into the NFL draft this year. But I have Texas winning.
I got Georgia 23-21. I think lower scoring game. I've been hearing all week it's hard to beat a team twice, and I don't know why we're not talking about it. It's hard to beat Kirby Smart once. Only 3 coaches have done that over the last 60 games. Nick Saban's one of them. Obviously, Kalen DeBoer and Lane Kiffin, the other one. So it's hard to beat Kirby Smart. He's going to get his team up, ready to play in this one. Texas is a fantastic football team, but, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, or fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And I'm just not going to be fooled again. I doubted Kirby the first time in this matchup. I'll have to be wrong on the other side. So I'm going to go Georgia 23-21.
See, so you're going to go down like Cole in the Red River Shootout, just on spite and hate alone.
I don't think picking Kirby Smart in Georgia is quite like picking Brent and the Sooners. I'm not relying on Sooner magic to get this job done. I'm relying on one of the best football teams in the country.
Yeah, you're relying on dog domination. I'm relying on Sooner magic to still exist.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
It did. It just had to happen against Alabama. Sooner magic, again, had to happen once this year.
Outstanding. Well, our prediction will be up on the show on Friday, so you guys check us out on YouTube for that. Guys, SEC Unfiltered, thanks so much for joining us tonight. I really had a blast, man. We'll have to do this again. You guys make sure you go to @SECUnfiltered on Twitter. Find those guys on YouTube as well. They're awesome. They do really good content. Sorry we didn't get Dave on tonight, but we'll have to do it again and get Dave on. He's probably watching basketball or something. He's probably walking around the house with the kid in one hand. And
he's watching Texas NC State, man.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's got the Shoney's basketball.
He's got Bama taking on UNC tonight. I mean, he's all over the place.
What is the Shoney's basketball? What's the deal with that?
I have no idea.
He posts that religiously.
It's Dave's bat signal. I don't know.
Okay, fair enough.
That's why I always post the bat signal gif. So,
all right, anything you guys want to say before we roll out of here?
No, man. I mean, just excited to see everybody in Atlanta and love. Can't say thank you enough to all the Texas folks, all your love and support. It's been incredible since the launch of SEC Unfiltered, almost a year ago to the date. We'll be celebrating that in a few weeks, but just feel so blessed and grateful and thankful to all the Texas folks that show us love and support us. And it's been an honor getting to know you guys. And again, excited for Atlanta, man. Looking forward to it.
I have dumb takes. I'm going to go down with my dumb takes every single time. That's what I'm going to do. That's my you can call it dumb all you want. I'm going to go down with it. At least I'm willing to go that far.
No, you got to stick with it. If you're going to say it, you got to stick with it. Cole, Chris, appreciate it. You guys have a good rest of the night. Have fun up in Atlanta and hook 'em horns.